The restless heart of modernity, Faust, Negation, and the eternal feminine. Goethe's Faust stands as the central myth of modern consciousness, a monumental work that unites the great contradictions of human experience: science and art, faith and doubt, guilt and grace. The drama which occupied the poet for over 60 years, from its first fragments in 1772 to its final version in 1832, is a profound philosophical anthropology that charts the journey of the human soul from intellectual pride to salvation through ceaseless striving. The story begins not in rebellion, but in exhaustion. The agony of overknowledge. The protagonist, Dr. Faustus, is a man who knows everything and understands nothing. He has mastered philosophy, medicine, jurisprudence, and theology. Yet, despite this accumulated knowledge, his soul finds only emptiness. The night is long, his candle burns low, and he stands at the threshold of intellectual futility, whispering the ancient cry of Ecclesiastes, "Vanity of vanity." This is the agony of overknowledge. His mind has become a closed room, and he suffers without God, desiring both certainty and immediacy. In his famous monologue, Faust confesses, "I have, alas, studied philosophy, jurisprudence, medicine, and even theology." He stands before his accumulated knowledge, which he views as a load of woes. He is wiser than all their tribe, fearing neither devil nor believing in hell, yet with his fear all joy is gone. He recognizes that his existence is confined within a cursed, dank dungeon hole, surrounded by moldering dust, a closed world. He seeks to pierce the veil of creation by trying magic art to understand the bond that holds the world through all its mystic folds, and discover the hidden seeds of things. This intellectual state is defined by an absolute refusal of limits. Faust refuses the limits of both reason and faith, seeking to cure his spiritual despair, what Soren Kierkegaard called the sickness unto death, through sensation, though experience without transcendence only multiplies emptiness. Faust is the embodiment of the Enlightenment ideal of autonomy, rejecting external authority and seeking to define his own good. But this autonomy, without the necessary tempering force of love, degenerates rapidly into exploitation. In his quest to escape the confining limits of human life, Faust looks upon the crystal goblet, a phial of opiate dew of sleep, the dear extract of all subtle powers that kill, and decides to end his existence. It is only the sound of distant choir singing, the sweet, soft peals proclaiming Christ is arisen, that pulls him back from despair. He hears the message but confesses, "The faith I want." Yet the memory of his pious youth and the sacred language of the angels call him back to life again. Second, the spirit of negation and the wager. It is into this moment of transition that the tempter arrives. Mephistopheles is the spirit of negation. He defines himself as a part of that primordial might which always wills the wrong and always works the right. He confesses that everything created deserves to be annihilated, and his pure element and sphere are destruction, ruin, and death. He claims to be part of the darkness from whose primal pole the light was born. Mephistopheles and the Lord have already set the framework for the wager in the prologue in heaven. The Lord permits the challenge, recognizing that man still must stumble while he strives. Mephistopheles' purpose is to drag Faust on through life's wild chase, through flat, unmeaning emptiness. predicting that Faust will cling and cleave to him. The immediate cause of the wager is Faust's curse of all the high abstractions and false promises of earthly existence. Cursed be before all the high opinion the soul has of its own dominion. Cursed be the flattering goods of earth, wife, child and servant, house and hearth. Accursed be hope, accursed be faith, accursed be patience above all. The covenant is sealed on the condition of satisfaction. Faust pledges his soul if he ever says to a moment, "Stay, thou art so lovely, stay." Faust makes clear he does not speak of joy, but rather wants pleasure that smarts, giddy intoxication, and enamored hate. He wishes to merge with all of mankind's experience, their deepest and their highest, to sound them all, and with them too be wrecked and ruined in the end. Evil, represented by Mephistopheles, only recognizes contract, not gift, but Faust. The ever-active, striving soul will work out its own salvation. Third, the descent into sensuality, Gretchen. The pact instantly transports Faust from old scholar to young lover, setting the stage for the Gretchen tragedy. Faust is immediately captivated by Margaret, Gretchen, finding her passing fair, of such a modest gentle air, yet with a dash of pertness too, and girlish innocent conceit. Mephistopheles attempts to corrupt this innocence in a strategic fashion, recognizing that the girl had just returned from confession and was a most guileless thing. Faust demands to hold the sweet young maid in his embrace that very night. Mephistopheles must therefore deploy cunning to achieve the aim, stating that the thing requires no little care, and that full 14 days must first be spent to come upon the proper scent. The tension arises from the conflict between Faust's intellectual ambition, now channeled into sensual conquest, and Gretchen's simple purity. Gretchen is shown to be a simple, neat girl whose sweet hand, where she does sway, makes the meanest hut decked in heaven's array. Yet her vulnerability is exposed when Faust enters her room and observes, "Poor wretched Faust, thou know'st thyself no more." Faust's mighty resolve is reduced, and his passion flows into viewless dreams. Faust attempts to bridge the metaphysical chasm between them by offering philosophical evasion when Gretchen questions his religion. He asks, "Who dares pronounce his name?" He argues that the all-embracer, the all-upholder grasps and upholds me himself, and urges her to fill her heart therewith, concluding, "Feeling is all in all, and name is but smoke and sound, enshrouding heaven's pure glow." The source commentary judges this reduction of faith to emotion as unknowingly sowing the seed of nihilism. Gretchen instinctively recognizes Mephistopheles as a profound evil. She tells Faust that she hates the man he has made his mate deep in her inmost soul. His face stabs like a dagger through her heart. She notes that Mephistopheles never loved a son of Adam's race, and that his presence eats her very heart. She confesses that when his icy foot may cross the door, she feels as if she could not love Faust more. The relationship proceeds toward disaster through Faust's self-serving love, fueled by the witch's brew. Faust uses a juice whose grateful power can steep Gretchen's mother's senses in a slumber soft and deep. Gretchen agrees, noting that Faust is the best of men, and that so much already has she done for him that now scarce aught remains for her to do. This act leads to the deaths of her mother poisoned, her brother Valentine slain, and her child drowned. When Valentine lies dying, he curses Margaret, telling her that she is once and for all a strumpet. He prophesies that every honest citizen will turn away from her. The curse reveals the devastating social consequences of Faust's actions. The church shall spurn her from its door, and she will be condemned to some vile den of want and woe. Valentine dies proclaiming that he goes through death with fearless mood to meet his God, as a soldier should. Forth guilt and mercy the imprisonment. Gretchen, imprisoned and maddened by her guilt, seeks solace through the Mater Dolorosa. In the cathedral, the evil spirit torments her, reminding her of the poisoned mother and the murder of her child. The Latin choir sings the Dies Irae, and the terror doth seize her. She feels as if the organ stopped her breath and that the pillar shafts enclasp her round. She falls down in a swoon. Faust, finally understanding the depth of her woe, confronts Mephistopheles, calling him a treacherous and worthless spirit, a dog and abominable monster. He demands, "Deliver her, or woe thee." Mephistopheles, unmoved, merely states she's not the first. Faust, heartbroken, cries out that the misery of this one digs into the marrow of my life. Mephistopheles maintains that he cannot loose the bonds of the avenger, nor open his bars, asking, "Who was it that plunged her into ruin, I or thou?" Faust enters the prison cell and finds Gretchen suffering delusion. She has lost her peace and her heart is sore. She tells Faust that they took her sweet child from her in spite, and now say she murdered the sweet child. When Faust tries to lead her out to the open air, she refuses, insisting, "I may not go. No hope for me remains. They watch me close. My home is with my chains." She cries out for her child, which she describes as kicking and living. Gretchen submits to divine judgment, turning away from Faust, saying, "Judgment of God, to thee my soul I give." She shudders before Faust, saying, "Henry, I tremble when I think on thee." The first part of the tragedy ends not in damnation, but with a voice from above declaring, "Is saved." Guilt is redeemed by innocence. Fifth, the allegory of civilization and the final striving. The second part of Faust stretches beyond the personal into the cosmic, transforming the love tragedy into an allegory of civilization. Faust now becomes the restless spirit of modernity itself. He is seen founding empires, creating artificial land, summoning classical beauty from myth, and striving toward an impossible utopia. The old scholar becomes the modern engineer. Faust engages in tremendous labors. He commands armies and builds dikes against the sea. The implication is profound. Human dignity lies not in success, but in restless aspiration. He is constantly striving toward the unreachable goal. At the moment of his death, having reclaimed land from the sea and envisioning a people free upon a free soil, Faust utters the fatal words of contentment, "Verweil doch, du bist so schön, stay, thou art so fair." He dies at that instant, but Mephistopheles loses the wager. Faust's satisfaction is not sensual but aspirational. He dies still striving. The ensuing scene is the battle for Faust's soul. Mephistopheles is confident, bolstered by a host of imps and devils, asserting the soul is his by the signature of blood and by the seal of a lifetime spent in giving free rein to all sorts of foolish fancies and unprincipled iniquities. However, descending angels defeat the malignant host by scattering a shower of celestial blossoms. Evil, which recognizes only contract, not gift, is defeated by grace, which breaks the logic of exchange. The angels carry Faust's soul upward, singing the moral of the piece. The ever-active striving soul works out its own salvation. 6. The metaphysical ascent and divine complementarity. Faust's salvation is completed by the invocation of the metaphysical feminine principle. The final ascent comes through the chorus of female saints, penitents, and mothers. Among the throng of redeemed penitents, one appears conspicuous, whose name was Margaret, who is interceding for Faust and draws the newcomer after her to share in her sempiternal blessedness. The philosophy supporting this metaphysical ending is deeply integrated with the concept of woman as a receptive, non-dominant spiritual force. The final line of the drama declares, "The eternal feminine draws us upward." This statement is not sentimental gender symbolism, but metaphysical. It signifies that receptivity, not mastery, is the final form of wisdom. This wisdom, often seen as Sophia, the divine wisdom, reconciles eros and agape. Goethe intuitively understood this concept of the feminine as a spiritual path. This aligns with theological frameworks that stress receptivity to God's grace. Mary's obedience, for instance, made her the cause of salvation for herself and for the whole human race. Similarly, Gretchen becomes the mediator of salvation, just as Mary became mediator of incarnation. The concept of woman in historical philosophical thought, according to the supplementary texts, often emphasizes receptivity and wisdom, viewing her in relation to generation and wisdom. In the Faustian context, Faust's male intellectual impulse, striving for mastery and autonomy, failed when he reduced faith to emotion and sought domination. Gretchen, the receptive, compassionate, forgiving feminine, achieves salvation through her suffering and forgiveness, and in the final scene she provides the necessary grace, the gift to elevate the continually striving soul. The final chorus of the drama pronounces, "All that is transient is but a parable. The insufficient becomes event. The indescribable here is done. The eternal feminine draws us upward. The insufficiency of human effort becomes the event of divine mercy." The receptive, the compassionate, the forgiving, the eternal feminine completes what reason begins. Faust ends not with the theological proof or argument he sought, but with the vision of light and restoration. The meaning of life is not to be satisfied, but to keep seeking. As long as we strive toward the good, even failure becomes flight.